I understand they're here because we got swatted. A report was made that 2 people had been shot and killed, and that the gunman was threatening to hurt themselves. They didn't send a SWAT team. It was just a couple of officers. I don't want to drag them or be mean to them because they were polite.
You know, dear listener, the rhetoric yesterday was turned up to about 200% thanks to the dear President Biden. And it's lucky that we didn't end the day yesterday with some kind of very bad disaster streamed live on YouTube. Before we get into that, my name is Dan. This is the Soule of Wisdom. Thank you for joining me. Please do take a moment to like, subscribe, share, do those things. I'm going to jump right in because I'm very, very frustrated by what I've seen in the past 24 hours. So, in case you're not familiar, Tim Pool, very popular on YouTube. He has over 1 million followers on each of his 3 channels. He does a live show during the evening hours that often outpaces the likes of CNN and whatnot as far as viewership goes. He is a very cool dude, in my opinion. What's interesting about Tim is he at best could be described as center left. This is not a right-wing conservative guy. He surrounds himself with varied opinions. He has a guy named Ian who is with him. Ian is definitely further left. He has a guy named Luke with him who's further right to the point where he would probably be labeled an anarchist. His producer Lydia is probably center right at best, though very strong anti-abortion views. And then Tim himself would be center left. He is very pro-gun, for example, but he is also very left-leaning on various social issues. So during their live broadcast last night, they were swatted, and if you're not familiar with what swatting is, it is the practice of calling in a false police report of something very bad happening with the idea of creating a little chaos for the person who you're calling it in. He had his home, which is also his studio, invaded by the police, and they said they received a call that 2 people were killed and that the killer was going to shoot himself. They were very, very lucky that what went down was not more serious than it was. They have staff there. It is more of a studio than it is a home at this point for him. And there were people outside who encountered the police right away, and that probably diffused the situation a little bit. The police still searched the home. They actually walked through the studio while he was live, and they were all like, what's going on? But they were actually very calm and very professional about how they handled it, and Tim got it sorted out and got them out of his home. But interestingly, the guest they had that night was a guy named Brandon Tatum, and Brandon is a former police officer who is also very well known on YouTube and on the speaking circuit around the country. And Brandon was telling them how these kinds of things have the potential to go south very fast, because essentially what you have is the police entering your dwelling because under what they call exigent circumstances, which is basically like it's an emergency, so we're going to go in without a warrant to check things out. But Brandon was explaining to them that these type of things can go very south very fast because there's entry that's happening into the dwelling with no idea from the people who are in there that this is coming, and it can often result in a violent end. Now, I will tell you that Tim is very open about the fact that he's armed. And I believe the others who are in the studio are armed as well. They haven't really said that they are, but I would bet that they are. And it's lucky that there were staff outside that encountered them beforehand to try to slow things down and diffuse it a little bit, because if the cops had busted into that studio and these guys had no idea what was going on, who knows how this might have ended. So yeah, I'm really, really frustrated to see this, because to me this was the end of the culmination of a day where the rhetoric was turned real high. So I want to go ahead and get into that rhetoric just a second from the dear president. This from NBC News. his poll numbers plummeting and COVID cases soaring, President Joe Biden began the new year desperate for a new narrative. On Thursday, President Trump's bruised ego may have handed it to him. This from Biden's speech yesterday on the whole January 6th thing. The former president of the United States of America has created and spread a web of lies around the 2020 election. He has done so because he values power over principle, because he sees his own interest as more important than the country's interest, than America's interest, Biden said of Trump. And because of his bruised ego matters more to him than our democracy or the Constitution, he can't accept the loss. Further down in the article, this is something that will be welcomed by almost every Democrat, said longtime Democratic operative Simon Rosenberg. The radicalization of the GOP is something we can no longer ignore. Greg Schultz, one of Biden's one-time campaign manager, said his phone lit up at the close of the speech with texts like, "This is the Biden I supported." This is one of the times when you have a choice. It is clear that January 6th wouldn't have happened, or that we don't have a choice. This is clear that January 6th would have happened if it weren't for Trump. This is the one time you get to you can't remove the instigator because the events were so egregious to the public. So, and then it goes on to say, the president made it very clear today that defending democracy is going to be the central agenda. Okay. So, I also want to share with you, yesterday I was going through an article, and I'm not going to pull it up on screen because it requires a subscription, because I am out of my freebies, if you will. And I'm not going to pay these people. I'm not giving them my money. But this was an article from the New York Times. It was an opinion piece. It was talking about how America's most urgent threat now comes from within. And they were talking about the need to handle the extreme rhetoric from the right and postulating ways that could be done. Now, I was going through the comments of that article, and I did save some of these comments. I copied and pasted them because they, again, speak to the extreme rhetoric that's going on. One of the comments, actually, we're witnessing the death struggle of a fragile democracy. Social media and Trump GOP took advantage in civic education by pandering to the public's worst fears and keeping them enraged 24/7. This is the birth of Gilead. Okay. No one wants to talk about the rise of domestic terrorism and the rise of parliamentary white nationalist organizations, but the numbers speak for themselves. The GOP is officially anti-democracy, pro-authoritarian. Until enough Republicans decide to put value over country's democracy, their selfish need to own the libs, and until some major catalyst shocks the producers and consumers of the right-wing media, nothing will get better. The truth is that this will only be stopped by a mass, disciplined, peaceful, but armed demonstration by the left. Fascists only respect force. These are just a couple of examples of the rhetoric from the left that was going on in this article that was talking about this extreme right-wing element that somehow needed to be re-educated, right? So the day starts with Biden, instead of trying to heal and bring people together, which is what a president is supposed to do. Now, we can argue whether or not Trump did that. You can definitely make the case that he did not. You can make the case that he's a divider, okay? And I'll have that discussion with you because, yeah, we can make that case. But it's ridiculous to look at Biden and say, this guy's better. He's not, okay? He had an opportunity to say, look, this very bad thing happened last year. It wasn't a good look for any of us, but it's time for us to move on. Instead, he doubles down and throws Trump under the bus, and in the process of doing that, he really alienates himself even further from half of the country. Because, you can agree or disagree with Trump, but, almost half the country voted for him. I mean, sorry, but they did. So it's not like this is a clear-cut thing where everybody's going to be behind Biden. But, he decided to stoke the rhetoric. And then you had Kamala Harris as well, comparing what happened on January 6th of last year to Pearl Harbor and 9/11, which is just an egregious and stupid comparison. They're not even close. I'm not saying that what happened last year was a good look. It was not. It was stupid by the people who decided that they were going to go do this thing. But it's hell and gone from an attack on our country from massive outside forces. It's just not the same. So you got this rhetoric going on, and then this article comes out that I was reading through in the Times where, they're highlighting this, quote, right-wing extremism, and then all you see in the comments are these extreme voices from the left. It's comical because they ignore their own extremism. And then, and then the day ends with Tim Pool, who is, again, center left at best. He is hell and gone from being right wing, and he is put, and his team is put, and his guest is put in a potentially dangerous situation for somebody who undoubtedly wanted to stoke some chaos and see if he could get a very bad thing happen on live TV, or on live YouTube rather. Can you imagine if that had gone south? I don't want to imagine it, but if it had, where would we be today? There is radicalism on the left and on the right. And right now, the president and the people who are running the show want to say that it's all right-wing extremism that's happening, okay? Well, I guarantee you that there was not a right-wing extremist that called in that fake swatting report on Tim Pool and his show. That did not happen. I guarantee you that happened either one of two ways. Either some stupid kid, which I highly doubt, or somebody from the left. And I'll say why it was somebody from the left, because the night before he had on Marjorie Taylor Greene, who the left absolutely despises. And quite frankly, half of the right does too. But Tim will have anybody on. He has had Vosh on, who is very left with some very questionable views, all the way over to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's very right and a Trump supporter. He'll talk to anybody. This is my point, because he believes in this exchange of information. The problem is that the country is not aligning with what Tim wants to do. They don't have this. Well, I say the country isn't aligning. There's a good portion of the country that isn't aligning with what Tim wants to do, because again, we're so bifurcated, we're so divided, that there's this need to take people like Tim down, because he wants to have a conversation to try to bring people together, to try to find ways to see eye to eye, stuff like that. And it is amazing that what happened last night didn't end in a bad way, and I'm happy that it didn't. I don't know Tim other than, watching him on YouTube, but him and the people he has around him seem like cool people. They seem grounded, and I'm happy that this didn't go very bad for him. The rhetoric in this country has to be turned down. The stupid has to stop. Whoever called that in last night was just stupid. And until everybody slows down, shuts up a little bit, and starts listening to each other, rather than going further and further to extremes, sooner or later one of these things is going to end very badly. And I'm hopeful nobody gets hurt. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for now. Hopefully yesterday was an aberration, and the rhetoric calms down and the world gets a little better, but somehow I'm not holding my breath. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Until I see you next time, thank you for watching.